Hello and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk, episode 36. 36 is a very significant number for me. And maybe I'll share it, maybe I won't. Who knows?
Ooh.
No, I just wore it in college for a season. That's all. It was my college baseball number for my freshman year. That's about it.
Okay,
I know.
okay.
It was a double XL jersey. It looked like I was flying every time I opened my arms to pitch. It was way too big on me. That's what you get for being a freshman, and not a good one at that. So either way, that's off the rails immediately. My name's Trevor Huth. Good to see you. Thanks for logging onto the podcast. I'm joined, of course, as always, by Nate Kosher. Nate, how you doing, man?
Good. I was trying to figure out where that was going. So
You and me
y-
both. I think we got there,
you,
though.
yeah, you reeled us back in. And you know what, Trevor? I've been seeing this posted quite a bit, but it's officially baseball season
Yes,
because the Super Bowl's done.
the Super Bowl's over. So anybody who ever wrote about baseball ever um, is now saying it's baseball season. So that's very important to know that it is officially baseball season. That's
Y-
exciting.
Yeah,
Also,
well, we
pitchers are reporting.
that's right. That's the official sort of sign of spring is here. And an exciting time. It doesn't seem like that long ago since the World Series, but at the same time, it's been like 4 months. So, yeah, all the fantasy stuff definitely it will definitely start to heat up. And, people might even start to begin drafts. Maybe not quite yet for redraft leagues, but um, good time of year to be doing the Coffee Talk podcast and talking about rookies and prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the spring training battles that are coming up. That's something that we will keep an eye on as spring training goes along. We talked about maybe looking at it this week, but it just doesn't seem to make as much sense. So we will jump into that stuff next week. But what we can talk about are a few signings. The big one, of course, being Pete Alonso returning to the Mets. It's hard to feel differently about him than you did last year, Nate. But how do you feel about this? Return to New York, joining now Juan Soto in a Mets lineup.
Yeah, I'm surprised. If you told me at the beginning of free agency that Alonso's going to go back to the Mets, I wouldn't have believed that. I think we've talked a little bit as it went on and on that it looked more likely that he could be. That's the only place he might end up as the market shifted and people signed. So I don't think he got the longer extension or the amount of money that he was looking for. Um, it's with only a 2-year deal, but I mean, he has goodwill in New York and he's, like a fan favorite. So now I guess it makes you think, would he push to now finish his career there? Like, does he kind of take a different trajectory? Because before this, I think it was like, oh, done with the Mets, gonna sign my big contract. But now going back there, I mean, they're going to be obviously a good team. He still is a good player. It's just interesting how it played out.
I mean, 2 years, 54 million. I think I thought he'd be going back to the Mets. I guess I thought that was just his destination. I couldn't see anybody else going after him super hard. But yeah, I mean, it's a couple years, right? So he can play it out. We'll see what happens. He's going to be 32, 33 by the time it's over. So still time to sign that big contract as long as he has a couple really good years under this contract. I'm not sure if there's any opt outs. I mean, if there's an opt out after next season, but he will need to perform. And if he performs, then he could get that big money contract that you're talking about.
Yes, he does have an opt out.
Okay.
So he got a $10 million signing bonus, and then he can opt out and become a free agent again next year.
Mhm.
So I we'll see how he does this year. He was pretty average, I think, for his standards, but then had a good playoff uh, series and was, the hero over the Brewers. But yeah, we'll see.
I think with Alonso, you just have to know what you're signing up for. He's just one of those players. You're not taking him because he's an all stat, you know, helper. You know what you're signing up for with Alonso. You are signing up for elite power.
Yep.
And I think walking and knowing that that's for fantasy baseball managers. If you're going to roster Pete Alonso, I think that's kind of your understanding of that you're specifically going after his power.
Yes, 100%.
I mean,
Also, can
that's
you?
probably an obvious statement, but I just, feels like that needs to be said because the Mets are probably in the same boat. They're like, he's got great power. That's what we're after.
Can you hear my dog barking, by the way? I'm going to do a live walk over and shut the door move here.
Oh my gosh, we are so lucky.
We're coming up with some new segments here.
We're gonna make some intro music for that.
Yeah. No, with Alonso. Yeah, I mean, pretty. I think he's not one dimensional because you'll get it's home runs and I guess RBIs, power. He's one dimensional power. Yeah, you know what he's gonna do. Probably won't be surprises. Has a high floor and a low ceiling type of pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's hit 30 plus home runs in the last 4 years. His strikeout rate has not been anything crazy. His walk rate's around 10%. He is a very good power hitter. He's one of the premier first basemen in fantasy because of that.
Hmm.
But that is what he is, right? He's not going to contribute a whole lot of steals. He did steal 3 bases last year. No, but you're getting a guy. He probably help you out in OBP. He'll probably help you out in power. And I mean, he hit 240 last year, which was up from 217 the year prior. But you're just kind of hoping he has monster home run numbers, I think, and that makes it sound like this is a bad thing. Like again, he is one of the elite
Yeah,
top end
yeah.
options at first base.
He's there's no doubt he's a great player. Not
Right.
to sell him short, but I think maybe for the free agency talk, it wasn't exciting for him to go back to the Mets. We're wanting him to. It's always when a big name moves teams that's more exciting. But yeah, it's one of the last dominoes to fall. So
Speaking
Mets
of
fans are
reunions,
probably
Nate,
excited.
they probably are.
Yeah,
Speaking of reunions, Jack Flaherty back to the Tigers. Let's go.
yeah.
Let's
Now
go.
I figured you're excited about that.
Love it. Love it. Oh my gosh. Look, he was a great pitcher for the Tigers. Obviously, they know how to help him to maximize his ability. And I love that he is going back there. I enjoyed watching him pitch in a Tigers uniform. And I think it's just a great spot for him. Also, because he seems to want to be there.
Hmm.
He really seems to have taken a liking to Detroit. And that's something that, if you're a fan of the team, that will stick out to you. Like you tend to want your players to be that. Um, so yeah, I'm pumped about it, Nate.
Yeah, he had really great numbers there for the stretch, pitching for the Tigers, and they have a pretty nice rotation now with him coming back and obviously Scooble at the top. Things are looking good for your Tigers.
They really are. And I know that one thing you want to talk about, Nate, is that the Twins also have been pretty active lately on the free agent market.
Yes. We were talking about the Dodgers last time and how was their spending and trading and signing all these free agents a good thing or a bad thing? And I kind of said, well, then there's franchises like the Twins that don't do anything, but they've officially made a move, Trevor. Not just one move, but two moves. They signed Harrison Bader to a 1-year deal plus an option for 2026, and then they signed who was the pitcher from Baltimore? Danny Colombo. I don't know how to say that name. Do you know
Mhm.
what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
that
mess the
guy.
name up. We don't need to
Just a
both mess the name up.
right, just another reliever. So they finally did something,
Hmm.
which is noteworthy because they don't do much. But Bader has had an okay career and he's pretty good. They can fill him in the outfield for when Buxton gets hurt, and there's going to be injuries. But they at least did something. That was my point. They finally did something.
Well, you know who we are waiting on to do something is Alex Bregman, still unsigned at the
Yeah.
time we are recording this. It seems like, well, it seemed like it since Thanksgiving, but it seems like he might be close. He's down to the same 3 teams it's been down to since, well, Thanksgiving. And it just seems like maybe eventually something has to happen. I mean, he's got to sign soon so he can report to spring training. But the Tigers, the Cubs, and I'm forgetting the third team, Nate, but there is a third team still in on him. It is not
Baltimore.
Houston. Baltimore, yes,
Baltimore. Yeah.
of course, because that's what Baltimore needs is more infielders.
Well, and it's like the Blue Jays in Baltimore. Oh, sorry, no, it's Red Sox.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, Red Sox.
That makes more
They're
sense.
you're right.
Right division. But yeah, so there are 3 teams left. All of them seem like solid destinations for him. Um, I don't do you have a prediction where you think he's gonna go between those 3 teams?
I don't know. Well now like I think we had talked about the Tigers a while back. Now that they signed Flaherty, and it seems like that would push a little momentum for, could it be the Tigers? But the Cubs, I'll say Cubs 2, Cubs 1, Tigers 2, Red Sox 3.
Okay. That I mean, yeah, I get it, and I understand why he's linked to the Tigers, and I understand that it's a very real link. I saw today that completely allegedly and rumored they offered like 5 or 6 years. Um, I also saw today that Craig Counsell, the Cubs manager, said that Matt Shaw is going to have the first chance at third base. So that could doesn't mean anything, but that could mean something maybe. So
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't necessarily think I want him to play for the Tigers, but if he does, he's a very good bat in that lineup. And I mean, you add Torres and Bregman, and your lineup is head and shoulders better than it was last year when you made that amazing push to the playoffs. So I don't know that I would love it, but I
Right.
think that it would make them better in the short term, which I think is the goal here, right? You've been bad long enough; you need to return to the playoffs after you made it. So that would make sense. I have
Yeah.
uh, I have an inkling, I have a feeling, and my feelings are almost never right, but I have an inkling it's going to wind up with him going to Boston.
So the Tigers, if they were to make the move, they'd probably have to overpay a little bit,
Mhm.
and or add a year or two, like you said, a longer contract, which that I agree with you, that could end up flopping in the long term overall. So if I was a Tigers fan, I don't know if I'd want him to be there either. The Red Sox and Cubs, I think like a lot of the off season have been in talks for all these people, so they're just probably wanting to make another move or two. Red Sox to keep up with the Yankees and Orioles and the Cubs. I guess the Cubs did make some moves, but
I think the Cubs said
yeah.
if they don't get Bregman, they're going to go after Justin Turner.
Oh, 39-year-old Justin Turner, or 38. Yeah, he's getting up there. I would like I'd take Bregman for a short-term contract, but I don't think I'd
Well,
want
you're
him
not
to
getting Bregman
be
for a
offered.
short-term contract. That's the
Right.
thing,
Yeah,
right? Like it
exactly.
sounds nice for us to sit here behind our microphones and our screens and say that, but it's you're not going to get him for that, right? So you have to accept the fact that if he goes to your favorite team, you're going to have him for a few years, and he'll probably be good. I mean, if you offer him 5 years, he'll probably be very good through the majority of that contract, if not the whole contract. Players are good when they're 35, right? So it wouldn't be terrible, like I said, and it makes the Tigers better. I think if you sign Bregman as the Tigers, and again, I know there's other teams involved. If you sign
Yeah,
Bregman as the Tigers, I think you are throwing the towel in on Spencer Torkelson, which is understandable. Don't get me
for
wrong,
sure. Yeah,
but you've already said that you're going to give Colt Keith the reps at first base now that you have Torres at second, and then you're probably going to split Javi and Trey Sweeney at short, and then you'd have Bregman at third. Then where do you put Torque? Where do you put Jace Young? Again, not important if you're going to win, right? Talent is talent. The Dodgers are proving that, but certainly adds some questions to where I don't know if they need to answer right now. But again, if your goal is make it back to the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs, then this is probably a move you make.
right. Yeah, and it's a win now type situation, and
Mhm,
maybe last year elevates their win or speeds up their window a little bit more than they were expecting. But um, yeah, he's I guess the last big name who hasn't signed.
mhm. Yeah,
So
and it's
we'll see.
we'll see. I'm sure by the time this releases, we'll know where he's going. So, if this is an outdated conversation, we are sorry.
You can tell us if we were right or wrong.
There you go. There you go. Nate, one thing that I'm doing right now is I am in a mock draft with the with some of the other fantasy baseball writers at Fantrax, and it's a roto league, 5x5 standard, all that type of stuff. And I think I love the start. I texted it to you. You may have different thoughts, but where I've started, my first round, I was picking from number 10. And so I was able to get, I'm sorry, that is 10 out of 16. Okay, so 10th out of 16, I
Okay,
got
10 out
Corbin
of
Carroll
16.
in the first round. And then coming back, I got Jackson Churio. Third round, I picked up my first pitcher. I got Garrett Crochet. I just got sniped on George Kirby. I wanted Kirby, got Crochet. And then in the fourth round, I got Wyatt Langford. So I know I am outfield heavy at the moment, but that is not necessarily on purpose, but I understood what I was doing at least. So I will save my defenses for myself for now. What do you think of that start? Again, Roto, just a
Six,
standard Roto,
16 team,
16
you
teams.
said?
Yep.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Mhm.
Carroll and Churio 1-2. You're getting the speed and the power right
Mhm.
off the bat. Exciting young players. I really like those. Then you said you're going for Kirby, but then you settled for Crochet. Is that what it
Going for
was?
Kirby, got sniped the pick before, ended up with Crochet.
I mean, that's still,
Darn, right?
yeah, exactly.
Dang it.
It's a good consolation prize. I think like maybe there's the only question with Crochet is just being like a full expected like workload ace.
Mhm,
You know, there could be some questions with last year the White Sox are kind of trying him out, and
mhm,
he probably didn't have the in. You could really ride him more if he was up to the task, as a ace of a rotation. But yeah, that's great. I mean, so you had 10. That's your top 4 rounds. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think
Yeah, I mean,
that looks
look,
good.
here's my thought. When I hear the word roto, I'm immediately going to go after any power speed player in the
It,
first 3 or 4 rounds. Anyone that I see that's
just
at the
pump
top,
those numbers
any of
up.
the stars,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
it is important to be able to cover both of those categories. You can make up average, you can make up OBP, you can honestly make up home runs. But there's just so few elite speed guys that I always want to go for the top end speed guys who are going to provide me not just speed, but also something else. And so I was elated to get Carroll. I was elated to get Churio. And it's the same reason why I just picked my third outfielder as my third hitter and got Wyatt Langford. He's going to provide some home runs. He's going to provide some steals, right? I think he went 16 and 19 last year, home runs and steals. So I can now go back in the top 5 rounds. I'm just taking whoever's available, honestly, regardless of position. I'm not going to take 5 outfielders. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. There's 3 outfield spots. I'll pick all my 3 outfielders right there. It doesn't matter where the stats are coming from, in my opinion. I want
right.
when it comes
Yeah,
to the elite players at the top, I just want the stats. I just want the output and the performance. So that's why I was like, cool. I'll take all my 3 outfielders. I'll find the rest of the stats I need later. And obviously, I'm going to go on a little pitching run here. I debated taking a couple pitchers that are still there, and I could name them because this won't come out till after my next pick anyway. But there were probably 3 or 4 pitchers. I was like, "Ooh, I really like them here," but the fact that there were 3 or 4 pitchers made me go, okay, so let me take Langford, and then I just betting I can get one of those
you'll
guys
have. Yeah,
back.
they'll be available.
So
Well,
that was my thought.
Carroll, I mean, even last year in his quote unquote down year, he turned it on in the second half. He still cleared 20 home runs, 30 stolen bases. So he had
Mhm,
22 home runs, 35 stolen bases. And I would think he'll do better this year, even so. Yeah, I mean, I would be happy whenever you said draft Corbin Carroll, but Churio's a stud.
yeah,
And even if Carroll doesn't do as good with those numbers, the slash line numbers, he's still he'll get you steals and home runs, I
mhm.
think, no matter what. So yeah, good work.
It's not bad, right? Not bad. We'll see how
Wyatt
the rest of the
Langford,
draft goes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Wyatt Langford, a lot of potential there. I guess you kind of have a potential heavy team, which is,
How I
I guess,
always
what you
draft.
do with prospects. Yeah, but like, not. I guess Carroll's. We know what he can do, but you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, if everybody takes a step forward, this is going to be a good team. But if they
Yeah,
regress and or stay the same, then this team's probably not going to look as good. I understand,
right.
right? But
Yes.
that's how I draft. And also with Wyatt Langford, that was a big risk. I think probably in the fourth round of this draft. But I'm betting on the talent, and I'm betting that even if he has a down year, he's still going to be somewhat helpful in steals and home runs. And I have two guys who can already provide that anyway. So I'm just kind of betting upside with my fourth round pick, which probably isn't the smartest thing to do, but I'm bad at fantasy baseball. I say it all the time. And with that in mind, Nate, we're going to take our first quick time out here on Coffee Talk. When we come back, we'll be talking some more baseball. We appreciate you listening. And of course, Coffee Talk is a part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. And welcome back to Coffee Talk on the Pitcher List Podcast Network. My name is Trevor Huth, and of course, I am joined by Nate Kosher. We were just talking about some new signings. We were talking about a mock draft I'm in, and I completely forgot to tell Nate about it, but I made another fantasy baseball trade that I think we're probably going to talk
Oh, wow.
about. Yeah,
Okay.
30-team Dynasty League. This was leading up to the keepers. We didn't quite get the trade in time, but we made it right after the deadline. It somewhat worked out. I don't know. I have worse picks in our prospect draft that we're doing right now, but it's fine. Um,
That makes me think of something else too for my big league. So you go first, and then
okay, so
I'll get my thing.
I have reasoning here, and I mean, I think it's a good trade anyway, but I have reasoning here. So I
Yeah.
traded Andy Pages and I traded Griffin Jacks
Okay.
for Arjun Namala and Emiliano Teodo. So two major leaguers for two prospects. It's a
The
dynasty league,
the Trevor way.
right? So I had my reasoning. Okay, one, Pages scares me because he plays for the Dodgers. I know he could get traded, but I'm not going to hold him on my roster for could get traded. And Griffin Jacks is a phenomenal pitcher, easily the best player in this trade as of right now.
Yeah.
But um, his ceiling is as a setup guy.
Right.
You have Duran. Okay, so as good as he is, as good as his ratios are, I feel like I can find that with other relievers. And I get a player that I'm higher on than most, Arjun Namala, who I have 64th overall in my top 100. He is, I mean, he struck out 30% of the time last year. There's a lot of risks here. He's a very high ceiling, low floor type of player, but he's got a ton of power, and he was just 18. And I am as high on this guy as I could be on anybody. And that's a whole different scouting conversation we don't have to have. But
Wow.
I'm huge on him. And then Emiliano Teodos, a guy who's on the 40 man. He's close to the majors, and he can touch triple digits absolutely regularly. Giant command questions, but if he fails as a starter, has the stuff to be an elite back end reliever. So I feel like I've just replaced Jax, just maybe 2 years down the road, and then I got
Yeah.
some potential with Namala when the hope is that he goes off this year and I can maybe flip him for pitching. But I think I did very well in this trade personally. I know it doesn't look that great, but again, this is a dynasty league, so I'm trying to make certain decisions for the future that I probably overthought. But what do you think of this trade on, Nate?
Well, I agree with you on Jax. I actually had him in my 30-team league. I think I traded. I don't think I ever had him in the regular season, so I traded for him at the beginning of the offseason, had him on my team, signed him to a contract, and then ended up trading him away because he doesn't get. Like you said, he's a great player. I don't think he gives enough value to actually keep him. So I had signed him to like I think it was a 3 or $20 million deal on in the league where we give out contracts, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to give that big of chunk to a reliever because, like you said, you can find there's going to be relievers popping up that we don't even know about yet.
Mhm.
Who will be able to gather holds and strikeouts. Duran in Minnesota is firmly entrenched. It's not like I wouldn't. He's got great stuff too, but I wouldn't say his role is like Emmanuel Clase. Every ninth inning he comes out. Jax could have stolen 5 to 10 saves, maybe something like
That's what
that.
he did last year. Yeah, for sure.
But I agree with you. You could probably find that value elsewhere and use him to get other pieces. So who is the other? No, I forgot who you said other than Jax. I was just thinking about.
Andy Pages.
Oh yeah, Pages from the Dodgers. So he was okay last year for stretches, right? Some power, but Yeah.
OBP some power, but he projects as a bench bat right now in LA. I know somebody might get hurt and he gets a starting role, but it just seemed if I feel like I'm getting a really good prospect, right? If I'm getting how I see it, a top 75, I mean, if it's at 64, a top 65 prospect, I will give away a bench bat and a reliever, and plus I get Teodo back, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it, I see the strategy with it. I don't know those prospects well who you're talking about, but
So here's my thing with Namala, okay?
I'm
Like
not sad giving up Pajes at all either.
so here's my thing with Namala, okay? He has a lot of swing and miss. He's very young. Okay, I mean, I understand all of the warts that are coming with this. There's just certain guys for me when I'm watching that I see something and it looks special, and I'm like, I'm bought in, and you can't convince me
Hmm.
otherwise. It's a bad way to scout, right? I mean, it's terrible. I don't recommend it. But the thing is, I would watch one of his teammates. I'd be looking at somebody else and I see somebody do something special and I go, "Oh my gosh, what was that?" And it was Namala every time. That happened like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, "This guy's got to have something."
Oh,
And
yeah. You might as well
it
make
could
a move
just
for him.
I mean, it could just be a line drive to the gap, but the swing, where, what pitch it was, where the pitch was placed, like it's just something that you're like, "Wow, like, oh my gosh." And he was doing that at 18. His first half was awful. His second half was a lot better. He still struck out near 30% of the time or at 30%, whatever. I understand that 30% is a really bad number to have. But 18 in low A and or single A rather, and I'm looking at him in different games going, "Oh my gosh, who's that guy?" And it's Arjun Namala every time. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
I'm,
that's young.
yeah. So it's again, it may turn out to be a dumb move, but it felt pretty low risk in terms of what I was giving away. Again, Jax is hard to give away. I did not want to trade away Jax, but um, by trading Jax instead of one of the other relievers on my team, I was able to get Emiliano Teodo also, which I think may have the highest ceiling of anybody in the trade.
Yeah. No, I can see it.
So anyway, just a fun little surprise trade that I forgot to tell you about. What were you going to share?
So I forgot in my league, it's restricted free agent week, which is always a flurry of activity. So each team, we sign contracts every year, but then you can name up to 4 restricted free agents, and then everyone else in the league can bid on them. High bid gets the player, or the owner has the chance to bring them back.
Okay.
So the strategy that goes into it is, let's say there's someone um, you might sort of like, but you don't love, but you think, oh, I could saddle the owner with a huge salary. So I'm going to bid, I'm going to bid this person up high and, or high enough to make them think strong about it. And then it could put them over their salary cap that we have for the league. So some of the strategy that goes into it is thinking about that. Sometimes just like, if it's someone you like, you just the number doesn't matter and you just are going to go for it, right? If
Mhm.
it's one of the guys that you like, or you're mining for gold and trying to find, like, for example, Hunter Gaddis was uh, up for $1. Once again, a solid reliever, someone who got, I think he had over 30 holds last year. So you could say, oh, I'm going to bid $7 on him or $9 on him and have a good chance to get him. But it's rolling throughout the week. So each each day there's a list. Here's all of today's RFAs. You bid that day, then you find out at night. They'll message say, "Hey, you got the high bid. Do you want to keep the owner? Do you want to keep him or let him go for this amount of money?" So
So each day
it's
there's a
pretty
new
fun.
list.
Yeah, you.
How do they come up with who comes through every day?
Yes, good question. So we all give our 4 names up. You don't have to do 4, up to 4 names. They'll say, "Here's the complete list,"
Mhm.
and then the owners can decide what the order is, because there's
Gotcha.
also strategy with that. So maybe you put your cheapest guys first to see if you can get them back and know, oh, there's a big name like Juan Soto's he's unavailable, but a big name's going to be available late in the week. So I'm going to conserve all my salary cap, try to get that big name. But
Mhm.
Today, for example, Tarek Skubal was up.
Ooh,
That yeah,
all
I'm
my money.
expect.
I would spend all
I
my
know.
money.
And current original salary is $24, which is
So you
not
have to
much.
go higher than
So you have
24?
to go higher than 24. And
700,000. How much money do you have?
right, exactly. We have 350
Okay.
for our salary,
All of
but
it.
I think he'll be a big name, obviously. But then my Diamondbacks bias showed through. So Ryan Nelson was only $1. He had
Mhm.
a nice second half last year. Could be battling for a spot. And then O'Neal Cruz for $27. Aaron
Also
Judge
a guy I'd go at.
for $61. So like Judge could go. Someone might go up to 100, for example.
Mhm.
But yeah, you kind of got to think about what other people are going to bid.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
it's fun.
We
It's a
do a
fun
slow auction and it's
wrinkle.
the same thing. So, I mean, not the same thing, but we get to put players out and it's a slow auction. So you have a certain amount of money depending on certain
Sure.
factors and you have to decide how to spend your money. That's how we fill out our major league bench in this 30 team keeper league that I keep talking about.
So yeah, I think last year I don't even know if I got anyone
Mhm.
because I thought I was putting aggressive bids out, but then I got
You
beat on
weren't.
all of them. But yeah, exactly. But it's also at the same time, it's like, the Tigers not signing Bregman. It could also be
A
good
bit.
for you because
Yeah.
we still have our draft coming up, obviously. And
So
so like,
who
oh
have you gotten anybody yet or have you started? What
no, well,
Okay.
so it just started today, so we don't
Gotcha.
we don't know the results yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting way to do that for sure.
yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, so what we do is we have our first year player draft, but we can pick any prospect available. And you fill out you get to keep 25 players between your major league, minor league, and there's minimums, maximums, but you fill out your minor league or your prospects with a prospect draft that we're doing right now. And then you fill out your major leagues with the slow auction that I was just talking about.
Oh,
So it's
separately,
it's
nice.
interesting how all these different leagues have these different rules.
Yeah,
And this first year player draft, this is where I had the third overall pick. And I don't know if I said this on air or not, but I was dead set the whole offseason that I'm taking Chase Burns. I need pitching. I need high end pitching. I'm going to take Chase Burns.
I think yeah, we did talk about this.
I
So
took
now you've
JJ
changed your
Weatherholt.
plan. Oh,
Yep.
yep.
In the moment,
You panicked.
the first I didn't panic. I this was well thought out, but the first person went on the clock and I thought I'm taking Chase Burns. And then my pick came up and I'm like, oh, it went as expected, right? Roki goes first
Yeah.
and then Travis Bazzana. But and I'm like, oh man. Like and what it came down to is I definitely needed high end pitching. And all I've done since then is take pitchers. I've not taken a single other hitter other than JJ Weatherholt. Um, but what it came down to was how often do you have a chance to add a top 20 fantasy prospect for free? I mean, not for free. I had to trade up,
Well,
and I
right.
traded
Yeah,
Nixon
yeah.
Holiday, but
But he was
but
sitting there.
right. And how do you turn it down? And that's all I could think about. Like on my rankings, I think I have him at number 20, and I think I have Chase Burns in the 40 to 60 range somewhere. So uh, how do I justify that in my own mind, right? Just take the talent. I have a ton of shortstops right now, but they're all pretty good shortstops who may move off the position, may find somewhere else. And um, so I wound up taking JJ Weatherholt. And lo and behold, ninth overall, Chase Burns finally goes. I think it was ninth.
Oh,
But
nice. Huh. Interesting.
yeah, so I don't know. I thought it was interesting, but yeah, I've taken so many arms and they're all just like high upside, low floor. They could either shine or completely burn out in a
Implode.
matter of minutes. Yeah. It's been a fun draft. I'll read off my prospect haul so far just so you can see if you know any names here. I still have one pick left, but it's not for another 2 rounds. I picked my last pick's in the 11th, but let's see. Got to find the right spreadsheet. Here we go. I picked JJ Weatherholt in the first round. I got Jaden Ham in the second round. I traded back. I had 120, but I traded back to get Michael Arroyo. And so I picked at 2-3. which would have been
Okay.
33rd overall. And I got Jaden Ham, who Tigers prospect, not recently drafted, but borderline top 100 dynasty prospect. And then I just started taking upside guys. My third round pick was Bishop Letson, who was recently drafted in the third round by the Brewers.
I don't know him. Cool
He
name.
is he's picked as a Baseball America's named him as a potential breakout guy. He has absolutely command issues, but has giant stuff. Then I picked
Okay.
Jonathan Santucci, who was just drafted by the Mets out of Duke. And you think he's going to follow that, like Brandon Sproat, who's their pitcher that just got hurt, or who's going to be out all next year.
In the
Christian.
In the majors or minors?
In the majors. He debuted. Anyway, it's for the Mets. I can't, for some reason, the names escape me, but you hope he follows that kind of mold where he takes that upside.
Christian Scott.
Christian Scott, my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
So you hope he follows that kind of mold. Jackson Wiggins with the Cubs, who has massive stuff. Loved watching him. Still command issues. Blake Walters, same thing. Bryce McCage, who was the second rounder of the Brewers. And my most recent pick that I made today was Elvin Rodriguez, a former Tiger who amassed 33 innings between them and the Tampa Bay Rays, and then went and pitched overseas and just signed with the Brewers and has probably a mid-leverage role, if not a low-leverage role. But he's always had nasty stuff, and the Brewers have a nice pitching lab. So
one of those guys who left, did well, and now got another major league chance.
And 218th overall in a prospect keeper league where all the main prospects are gone, right? So I'm betting on upside because he's probably a cut at this point next year.
Sure.
And I have one pick left. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's you're going super
sicko mode. Yes,
into the weeds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. But again, my thought is some of these guys might take off, then you can trade them for other parts, or you keep them if they look like they're that legitimate. But a lot of them have command issues, and command issues are hard to get over. I also added Emiliano Teodo, who fits in that entire mold. So
there you go.
My pitching prospects are boom or bust, and there's no in between. But anyway, it's a fun way to do that. And then we have our one of the reasons that I made that trade earlier I didn't mention is the less major league players I have on my roster, the more budget money I have for the auction. And I was looking at some of the players, and I've already circled one. Like, I'm not leaving without this guy. So I want as much money as I can have. And I don't know if any of my league mates listen to this podcast, so I will not say who the guy is, but
you're making a move
major baseball player.
You were prepping for that to be available, or
hopefully, yeah, that's the goal, right? So I make some dumb trades, but I always have a reason behind it. I sometimes sell productivity at the major league level, which you should not do if you do dynasty leagues or whatever. Take the major league. I'll be the first to take the major league production. I'm telling you right now, prospects are so hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many questions. It's that old Family Guy bit where they're like, you could have a boat or you could have a mystery box. And Peter goes, but the mystery box could be anything, even a boat. Right? Like, that's what prospects are. And I fully get that. So that's go for the major league production. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tantalizing. That's why it's hard.
Right. Like, they could be so good. And so a lot of what I've tried to do now, and this is a redraft podcast, don't get me wrong. A lot of what I've tried to do is go for guys who would be valuable in redraft leagues, right? The prospects who are in AAA that might be able to help, right? The first few trades I made, I brought in Colson Montgomery, was one of the big ones. And he's somebody who could absolutely be the opening day shortstop for the White Sox.
That's impact.
I mean, if not him, it might be you or I, right? Like, who's going to do it? So,
right.
So I still try to go for guys like that, but every now and then, right? If you find a guy you like, go out and get your guys, I think. But yes, if you are in a fantasy baseball league, obviously redraft, yes, but dynasty too, go after the major league production. Younger major league production if you can, right? Don't go trading high-level prospects for 38-year-olds unless they're really going to help you win a league that year. But
yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
proven.
That tangent's over. And Nate, I think we got to focus more on redraft now.
We will.
After a quick timeout, we're going to have some deep cuts for you if you are looking at the ends of your drafts. We got a few names we're going to throw out. That's we're going to wrap this whole thing up. We appreciate you guys listening. Of course, if you are listening and you do enjoy our podcast, please give us a rating. Right, give us a rating, review, whatever you can do to help us out, help us grow our podcast. I enjoy doing this. Nate enjoys doing this, and of course, we appreciate you guys listening. So, do what you can, share, help us grow. This is hopefully a valuable podcast, and hopefully an entertaining one. So, thank you guys for listening. We're gonna take a quick time out. We come back. We're gonna have some deep cuts for you for your first or for your redraft drafts. I'm losing track of all the different drafts that happen in fantasy baseball. Anyway, we'll be right back. Coffee Talk is a part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. And welcome back to Coffee Talk on the Pitcher List Podcast Network. My name is Trevor Huth. Of course, I'm joined by Nate Kosher, and it is time for some deep cuts. We are going to be, these are guys that you may not have thought of, may help you out down the road. I tried to go with the weirdest names humanly possible. That way, Nate has no idea who they are, because that's more fun for me. But Nate, would you like to start and share one of your deep cuts?
Yes. Thank you. I'll start. This is probably the how do I say this? Lesser of the two deep cuts. So it's a shallower of the deep cut.
The first cut's supposed to be the deepest. Have you never heard music?
Oh, you're right. That is insane. I'm going with the Mets and Nolan McLean. And this is someone who potentially, at one point, they thought maybe he could be a pitcher and a hitter, a two-way player. Great athlete, but now he's focused on pitching. And now that he's focused on pitching, has some great stuff. And so he hits high 90s with his fastball. He has a sweeper, lot of spin, and a cutter, as well as a changeup. So he has a variety of pitches that he uses. But on his MLB profile, the fastball is a 60, the slider sweeper is a 70, and his control, that's the question mark, is only a 45. So I was just reading a lot about him, watching him a bit. He's got some great stuff. The control is the issue, but you could see him, if everything breaks right, being a starter. If it doesn't break right, he could probably end up in the bullpen. But the stuff was just, like I said, overpowering, tantalizing. And in college, he was actually going to try to play football as well, but he decided not to do that. He was going to just play offense and be a pitcher in baseball. Now he's sort of whittled his way down and focused on pitching. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember how I kind of came upon him, but he's the Mets. They haven't released the 2025 prospect list by team yet, but he was number 9 with the Mets, and we're probably not looking at this year. Better chance of 2026, but it's someone I just wanted to bring up to talk about. Do you know anything about him, or do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I have him at 189 on my top 600 for Dynasty.
There we go.
Top 200 player. You mentioned the stuff. He's got really good stuff. Here's my worry. And again, if we're talking redraft, he's a guy who's probably not on my radar, like you mentioned, at least in 25. He pitched single A, high A, double A last year. So he made a lot of jumps. He was only there for certain amounts of time, like 3 innings in low A, 28 innings in high A, and spent most of the year 81 2/3 innings in double A. For fantasy purposes, his strikeout rate, 32% in his limited high A innings. Beautiful. You love it. Once he got to double A, that dropped to 22%. So that is about that is 8.82 per 9, which is not terrible. He also just gave up more home runs. He was over 1 home run per 9 at double A as well. So the stuff is fantastic. I think there's still some learning to be done on how to use it. And so for me, I'm waiting to see some of those other numbers increase to where his stuff should be before I'm going to go out and say, hey, bye. Now, if he comes out and lights the world on fire, He's going to start, and I'm guessing Double A again, or they may push him aggressively to Triple A. I don't know, but if he comes out on fire, then yeah, absolutely, he's a guy you're going to want to take note of. But I think for 25, I think you're still looking for him to take that step forward in terms of missing bats and generating weaker contact.
Yeah, the I was just watching some videos of him, and well, actually, we didn't ever talk about that. I watched your PitchCon thing,
Mhm.
little segment with Nick you did, and if people miss this, they should go back and watch it. But Trevor queued up some pitching prospects videos, and then Nick would sort of rate their mechanics and rate how he liked them as
Break it down
pitchers.
off of two batters, which is not what you should do, but it's
Yeah.
what we do. This is the second year in a row I've done it with him on PitchCon.
So it's very interesting, and he was talking about like I don't remember who it was, but he was talking about how either starting from your right or your left, some people were sort of sitting down like a sitter,
Mhm.
is what he called it, and then there was someone else who had like a really smooth. Oh, that was Chase. Is that his name?
Moises Chase, yeah.
Chase, yes,
Mhm.
Chase. Uh, like a really smooth release. Like they
Oh
weren't
yeah, he's
wasting
great.
effort, and
That's
it
a deep
looks
cut.
just seamless. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good.
So
He's so good.
watching that, it's like, oh, that yeah, that is. There's a big difference.
Mhm.
Anyways, and I was watching Nolan McLean, and I just thought he looked good, and the stuff was there. And I know, like I said, this deeper cut, but we can't always talk about the studs because we're trying to bring names up to you that you may not know. So
Mhm.
that was
For
my
sure.
first one. Yeah,
I will jump in with
go ahead.
Joshua Kuroda Grauer. Have you heard of this person, Nate?
Um, I haven't, but his name makes me think of like a '90s sitcom kid. They always had like three names with like a hyphen or like two last names. That's what it makes me
So,
think of.
Joshua Kuroda Grauer was the third round pick of the Athletics in
Okay,
2024, meaning the most recent draft that we've had.
sure.
He started in Single A, got 63 plate appearances, then got promoted to High A for 50 plate appearances, and then got promoted to Triple A for 13 plate
Wow.
appearances to end the season. He only hit 167 in Triple A, but overall in his debut, 126 plate appearances, stole 5 bases, had a 7% strikeout rate, a 9% walk rate, and he hit 324. What you're
Wow.
looking at is basically the second version, or I'd probably going to tell you the light version of Jacob Wilson, who has an inside track at the starting shortstop job every day for the Athletics. A guy who's going to provide contact and then also contact. And
Yeah.
then what he'll do is give you some more contact. So he's very, very good contact, not a whole lot of power, but certain that jump from high A to triple A is kind of interesting, and I thought made him
That
worthy of bringing
is.
up here.
Yeah, that when you see him jump up through the ranks so quickly,
Mhm.
it definitely catches your eye and someone you got to take note of. And he's not on the Angels who have done that regularly, just sped their guys through.
The Athletics
You
kind of
know.
been doing that though.
Yeah.
Wilson
True.
was their first round pick in 23. Kurtz is already probably knocking on the door of the majors. I mean, he had a good AFL. It's going to be a really interesting team for the Athletics. I mean, when you look at their infield, you have Kurtz is going to be probably going to be the first baseman sooner than later. You have Max Muncy might take over second base at some point, they also have Zach Geloff there. You have
Oh yeah.
Wilson, who's probably going to be your shortstop, and then Muncy could play third. They have options like their infield is getting crowded really quickly with young prospects, and it's really interesting.
Well, also I see he was the Big Ten Kuroda Grouter, that is Big Ten Player of the Year last year. So
Mhm.
a college guy, which is kind of fun. Golden Spikes Award semifinalist. So
Really good bat to ball skills, man.
yeah,
That's really all it is. It's
it's a
opposite
good
Pete
name.
Alonso, but it's really good bat to ball skills are what make him interesting. All right, do you have another one for us, Nate?
Yes, my second one is Hyu Lee, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not sure 100%, but he is in your Detroit Tigers system. And I was just going back last year and sort of looking at people and made a move for him in my league uh, that I talk about a lot. But he was a double A All Star last year. He played in the Eastern League, which Christian Campbell, huge breakout player last year, right? He was the MVP, but he was the second base All Star team selection, and he was hurt part of the year, but then there were other parts of the year where he was absolutely on fire. So the cumulative season stats: 12 home runs, 56 ribbies, 16 stolen bases, slash 298, 363, 488. But the power speed numbers would have been more if he hadn't been hurt, and I think it's someone like, so second base is sometimes sometimes you either get a speedster or some sort of power, or you might get like a light slap hitting type of person. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where they're just putting up maybe a lot of steals, for example. But he looks pretty well rounded to me, and had a really good year last year for the Tigers. And so I think he probably has a chance in 25 based on what I've read, but I wanted to see what your thoughts were on him.
Yeah. Bonus points. Can you tell me who he was traded for that brought him into the Tigers organization? He did not start there. I remember
Yes.
writing up. Oh,
Well, I read about it in
okay.
doing this research about him, so I do
Gotcha.
know.
All right. It was Michael Lorenzen. He
Yes.
was part of the Phillies. Tigers traded Lorenzen to the Phillies. They get Hal Lee. And I remember writing up his on a site called Bless You Boys, the SB Nation Tigers site. I wrote up a video breakdown of how Lee went at the time of the trade, and I did not think there was any more power to be had. I really thought that he was just going to be kind of a gap guy.
Hmm.
And the Tigers hitting development has done a really, really good job with him. And I think he's a legitimate prospect. Here's the only problem. Where do you put him?
Yeah, I know. I thought about that.
Right. And you
That
maybe try him in the outfield. I don't know. I think he's probably destined for second base. So then where do you put him? Right. Like, and it's not a huge deal.
ex-
I mean, Glaber's only there for a year, but there's all these pieces that you're going to have to figure out, which is a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. But I think in terms of his 25 value, it's really hard to see a place where he's going to fit in without some injuries occurring first. Because you got to
that's
think
fair.
if for whatever reason Glaber Torres goes down, then they're going to move Colt Keith back to second, and Spencer Torkelson takes over everyday duties at first base.
Right.
Or
Yeah,
Jace Young comes in and plays second base, and you keep Colt Keith at first base, right? Like there's already
he's not
pieces
the
on the 40 man that fit better.
exactly. He's not going to be the first choice there,
Yeah.
but as a deep cut,
Hmm.
that there's going to be question marks
Yeah.
because
All right.
they're not slam dunks. But yeah, he thought he was someone that's interesting, and I thought, this he could be something. So
All right. Two more deep cuts. I'm going to talk through one,
yes,
and then I want to get your reaction to the other one. Okay. For the sake of time here, Damiano Palmigiani with the Toronto Blue Jays organization spent all last year at AAA. Some good power numbers, some very large strikeout numbers. I think it was another 30% strikeout guy at AAA. But the only reason I bring him up is because I've always been a fan because he has one of the most aesthetically pleasing swings that I have ever seen. And I absolutely just
wow,
adore watching him swing the bat just because it's so smooth, it's compact, and he can get so much power out of it. But the question is, does he fit in Toronto, and will he be able to hit enough for it to matter? Both of which I'm like, I don't really know. So he's a guy I think you're monitoring because he probably goes back to AAA because of his strikeout rate. And then if he does get called up, if they do need him, he might be somebody you look at depending on if he's been able to hit the ball a little bit more. But that strikeout rate's a little too worrisome for me personally. Um, the other guy, the guy I want your take on, though, is another infielder, second baseman in the Mariners organization. That is Ryan Bliss. Um, he has put up like 50, I want to say 5 steals for the last 2 years, and he should be in the mix for a opening day job at second base for the Mariners. He did make his debut last year. I don't know how much you know about Ryan Bliss, but he might be somebody worth monitoring, especially in those deeper leagues if you're looking to fill that second base position.
Yeah, he was in a Diamondbacks
Yeah, they traded him.
trade, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so that must have been for, well, they got Suarez and Seawald from the Mariners. So it must have been one of those trades. Um, I I am guessing.
Yeah, it was the they got him alongside Josh Rojas and Dominic Canzone for Paul Sewald.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, so I don't know a ton about him otherwise, but it's is he a speed guy or what's his calling card? What or his top?
I mean, yeah, I imagine he's just going to get you some solid speed numbers. He stole 55 bases last year between the both, or in 2023 rather, between all organizations. He played for Arizona, Seattle, Double A, Triple A. He ended up stealing 55 bases, hitting 251. I'm sorry, hitting 304 total. He had a really high batting average in Double A. And then last year, in Triple A, he stole 50 bases, hit 269 with 12 home runs. At the major league level, he hit a pair of home runs with 5 stolen bases, hit 222 in about 71 plate appearances. So he was still, even at his major league debut, slashing 222, 290, 397, was worth 101 WRC plus. And I'm thinking that he probably has a chance because he's on the 40
Yeah.
man. Obviously, he debuted last year. He probably has a non-zero chance of being the opening day second baseman. Right now, your options are Dylan Moore, um, Donovan Solano, Austin Shenton. So I imagine he's going to be in that
Which
race in spring training.
yeah. I mean, those definitely not, locked in great choices. So
Yeah.
the guys that we've talked about, he probably has the best shot
Mhm.
um, of sticking in 2025. Um, and out of the names, the one you probably would rank the highest, not based on the talent, but based on the opportunity.
Mhm.
The guy you said first, Palma Gianni, is that how you
Yeah.
say it? I was just looking him up. He makes me think of one of those guys that will come up like Reese Hines and could go on a crazy
Yeah.
tear and then bomb out at it, but
All
he
right.
could for a
He hits a
couple of
little better
weeks.
than Reese Hines. I just want to throw that out there. He hits a little better than Reese Hines.
But you know what I'm saying? He
Yeah,
could
you catch the
get a little,
power
you get that
momentum at
boost.
once. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then you pick him up and then maybe after a few weeks you drop him. But
Yeah.
that's what that
Yeah.
reminds me of.
For
But
sure.
hey,
I can
these
see
are the
that.
coffee talk guys we're
Right.
trying to make you aware of. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And Brian Bliss, again, to answer your question, I don't think I did, but it'd be speed over power, but he could possibly give you double digits in both. 55 steals on the dot for the last 2 years is pretty good, and I would take that if he could do that at the major league level. So
yeah.
definitely a guy I think to keep track of, especially during those spring training races. Nate, episode 36 of Coffee Talk in the books. Follow Nate on Twitter at Nathaniel Kosher. Follow him on Blue Sky. He's figured it out.
I did it. I finally did it.
He did it. He absolutely did it. Is it just Nate Kosher on, or is it Nathaniel Kosher on Blue Sky?
Yeah. No, it's Nate Kosher
Nate Kosher on Blue Sky.
on Blue
Follow me
Sky.
at Huth Trevor
Yes.
on Twitter or Trevor Huth on Blue Sky. And of course, we appreciate you listening. Like, share, review, anything you can to help us grow this wonderful podcast. We love doing it. And of course, we want it to continue to grow. So please help us out in that regard. But until next time, for Nate Kosher, my name is Trevor Huth, and this has been Coffee Talk, which is a part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network.